How can someone spot a narcissist? It's easier said than done, right? It's easy to take a long view and see them as a kind of specimen, a person with this personality. But there are signs we look for. Those signs take a little while to appear. That's why I tell people not to be angry with themselves if they've been in a relationship for a year before it dawns on them that this person might be really narcissistic. It can take a long time to see it. A person who is narcissistic has empathy that is changeable, not consistent, and shallow, sometimes very little empathy. They feel entitled. They are grandiose, arrogant, selfish, and dysregulated. They can't manage things like their anger. They are constantly seeking validation and admiration. They take advantage of other people. They envy others. They can be quite manipulative. They are motivated by power, dominance, and control. That is really what a narcissistic person is. So, how do you spot that? Giving you a list is one thing. It is quite another to ask how it shows up. It shows up in different ways. One way is that even in the early phase, what we call the love bombing phase, when things are intense and they're often at their best trying to win you over, when it feels like they hung the moon, you will still see that they get impatient. They could be quite contemptuous or dismissive of a person who works, like in a bar or at the restaurant you go to on a date. They might get really agitated if the reservation is not ready on time, or if they have to wait in line, or there is some kind of mistake. They get really reactive. If you make even a small critique or offer a piece of feedback, they will just lose it. And you will think, oh, okay, that is not the charmer I was talking to even an hour ago. They will often interrupt you while you are talking or not really listen. There will be a sense that even if they are looking at you, it feels almost like they are looking through you rather than at you. They are not attuned, which is the word we would use. There are other interesting soft signs. If you live in a city, I live in Los Angeles, where people drive, narcissistic people often drive very dangerously. There is actually research that shows an association there. They will drive really fast, faster than conditions would warrant. They will drive up on someone's bumper. They will honk. They will cut people off. They will give people the finger. So it has a road rage vibe. Pay attention to that. That is not just someone with a fast car who is like a boy with a toy. It is not that. Paying attention is a pretty surefire sense that this person might be narcissistic. You are looking for all these little signs. You are looking to see if they compare you to other people a lot. Maybe they compare you to an ex or someone they work with. They may be dismissive of something you do. So you will be telling them something you are excited about, and they might say, hey, that's great, but then add, I don't get it. That doesn't sound that hard, but sure. So they get their dig in. These signs get sprinkled in early on, but no one is going to walk up and show the most toxic stuff right away. The things that really show someone is narcissistic are not going to show up early on. It takes a little while. Like I said, that is why a lot of people need 6 to 12 months to figure out the situation in their relationship. Wow, 6 to 12 months is a lot longer than I would have thought. I think one of the difficulties in the subject of narcissism, as we talked about a little before we recorded, is that the word has become used so much that I think it has become a little desensitized. Everybody is now a quote unquote narcissist. If somebody is not interested in them, they are a narcissist. If somebody does not answer their phone, they are a narcissist. If somebody does anything, fill in the blank, they are a narcissist. You put out a lot of content online on the subject. I am sure you observe things and just shake your head at times. What are some of the biggest misconceptions you see out there regarding narcissism? I am so glad you brought that up because it is actually disconcerting to me. People who are actually in narcissistic relationships who are already prone to self-doubt are now doubting themselves more, saying, I don't know, my relationship is like this and it is not that. It is a lot worse than this. Maybe I am calling it the wrong thing, or people are also being judgmental. So when somebody is genuinely in a narcissistic relationship and everyone is saying everyone is narcissistic, it creates confusion. Some of the misconceptions are that any one of the things on that long list I gave you would make someone narcissistic. Just being entitled does not mean someone is narcissistic. Just being validation seeking does not mean someone is narcissistic. Any one of these things alone, and even like you said, I thought a person who is narcissistic is full of themselves. Just being full of yourself does not make someone narcissistic. Cheating does not make someone narcissistic. That is a popular one I see online. This fool cheated on me. He is a narcissist. I think this fool cheated on you. I get that, but we need a deeper dive to figure out if this person is narcissistic. Another thing is that we assume it is always going to be men. No, there are a lot of narcissistic women out there. There are enough people with narcissistic mothers that I can tell you there are obviously narcissistic women. So we have this misconception that it is always a guy. Now, it is more often a guy. I will say it is definitely much more prevalent in men, but it is definitely not the only game in town. When we talk about the more vulnerable, victimized, resentful, sullen, anxious, self-monitoring kind of narcissism, like everyone is out to get me, we see that as equal in men and women. So it is not just men. It is not always just the I am full of myself type. Like I said, there are different subtypes of narcissism, and it does not always look like the person with that salesperson vibe who is walking in and holding court. That is a very common, almost baseline form of narcissism. But there are many forms, including malignant narcissism, which can almost feel like psychopathy light. There is communal narcissism, which is very much the people on Instagram saying, aren't I the best? I saved 1,000 ducks this weekend. But they are actually a really awful narcissistic person who gets validation by doing good deeds. So there are all these subtypes too. So it is not just the braggy, arrogant kind of person. These misconceptions lead people to bandy about this term and use it as an insult, which is really dangerous because it is a good word that captures some really important territory in terms of relationship behaviors and patterns. But I mean, the internet is the internet. You do not need to be smart to drive it, so anybody can get in there and say whatever they want. Why do you think there are more male narcissists than female narcissists? I think a lot of it probably has to do with socialization. If a little girl shows up with some of the qualities that a narcissistic boy shows up with, she would be more likely to be shut down. I think peer relationships are different for girls, but I think a big difference is that boys are shamed for emotion, especially negative emotion. Crying, anxiety, fear. I was recently somewhere a few days ago, and someone's little boy, a kid probably 4 or 5 or 6 years old, got hurt. And the dad said, "Come on, dust off. That's enough of that." I thought, oh man, have got to be kidding me. Let the poor kid cry it out. So we still shame emotion in boys and in men. As a result, there is a real constriction around that emotional expression that can really build up a sense of shame and insecurity in men because there is really no way to express vulnerability. Through vulnerability comes strength for men, but that is not how we are socializing them. We humiliate men who show emotion. As long as that is the game, and we also socialize men to be more assertive, more aggressive, to be strong, to play sports in a certain way, to stand up, be a man. And be a man has a meta meaning of being gruff, being up in someone's face, none of this silly feeling stuff. All of that combined so that the socialization narrative for cisgender heterosexual men is very, very different than it is for girls. That said, since there are more than enough narcissistic women out there, that socialization is not going to stop that track for girls. But for a girl, it is almost like if a boy and a girl were teetering, the girl might actually, because she might have different kinds of emotionally held peer relationships. Her father, who might have yelled at the son for crying, might actually hold her and hug her, so she might learn a different kind of emotional regulation and vocabulary. Do you think there is any correlation between being self-absorbed and being a narcissist? Like somebody who posts a bunch of selfies, for instance, do you think they are more likely to be a narcissist? The research is interesting. Many research studies have looked at the association between posting selfies and narcissism. Not surprisingly, there is a strong association, but here is where we have to be careful. Just because the two are correlated does not mean they are the same thing, and does not even mean that one causes the other. What it means is that one might be a little bit of a marker for another. Show me a narcissist and I will show you a bunch of selfies, or a lot of self-referential, self-absorbed internet content, but not always. And you can also show me someone who posts selfies and I will say, I do not know this is a person who loves posting cupcakes or adores their dog or cat. You can look at the nature of the content, but at some level, we have to be very careful. Just because a person posts a selfie does not make them narcissistic. Even if they post a lot of selfies and they are annoying selfies, if when they show up as a person, they are well regulated, kind, empathic, and self aware, they are not narcissistic. They just like posting selfies. I have often heard that narcissism can be a spectrum as well. I would love to know your thoughts on the difference between somebody who is narcissistic, maybe somebody who likes to take a lot of selfies, is excessively self absorbed, all about me, and what signs you look for to tell the difference between somebody who is narcissistic versus someone who has the personality disorder. Narcissism is on a spectrum. At the mild end of the narcissism spectrum, you have people who are what you just called self absorbed. They are emotionally immature, attention seeking, sort of Instagram narcissisty. They are kind of harmless, annoying, and there is probably no likelihood of a deep, enduring, healthy, mutual relationship with them. It would be a sort of vapid, childish relationship. Are the You mean? Probably not. At the far end, the severe end of the narcissism spectrum, that is where we see more of the malignant narcissistic patterns, coercion, exploitation, meaning taking advantage of other people, manipulativeness, isolation, really menace, power, domination, and control are the key dynamics in the relationships. Those people at that end, you are looking at patterns that look more like domestic violence, domestic abuse. It can almost be dangerous. Most people are dealing with folks in the middle. It is not quite the cotton candy of the mild narcissist. It is definitely enough to make these relationships psychologically exhausting, destabilizing, and uncomfortable. But people in moderate narcissistic relationships will not say, I am scared of this person. They might say, I do get sometimes afraid of what their reaction will be if I disappoint them, but it is not like it is in the really severe relationships. Then there is the issue of narcissistic personality disorder. That is what is causing also a lot of the mess in the internet conversation. Narcissistic personality disorder, like all personality disorders, takes a minute to diagnose because a personality disorder is a stable, pervasive, persistent pattern over a long period of time that colors most of a person's interactions with the world, and it tends to be maladaptive. By definition, narcissistic personality disorder probably only affects 1 to 6% of people in the population, depending on the research study you look at. It is a relatively new diagnosis. I mean, new as in it only came into the DSM in 1980. The problem is that for that diagnosis to be delivered, a clinician has to have spent tea time with this person and evaluated them. We need enough time with the person. This is what I do for a living, and it would take me a minute. This is certainly not a diagnosis I would generate in the first session. To be frank, I may never generate it because it is also a stigmatizing diagnosis, and not just because we think they're not nice people, but rightfully so. The literature suggests it cannot really change, so insurance companies do not like it. That record can follow people through systems, and people think, whoa, that makes me uncomfortable. I have to be mindful of that as a clinician. So I think there are a lot of people out there walking around with NPD, and it does not get called something else. To me, we do not even use it well. I have done research studies where we use diagnostic instruments, and even then I am scratching my head when I look at the results, thinking, I am not sure. So it is a tricky thing. Personally, if I ran the world, and I absolutely do not and never will, I would get rid of the NPD diagnosis. I do not think it works. I do not think it helps. I do not think it tells us anything, and nobody really uses it right in the first place. We talked about at the beginning how to spot a narcissist, and we have spent the last few minutes talking about a lot of the nuance in that conversation and how it is not necessarily black or white. You also mentioned that it can take like 6 to 12 months for somebody to fully realize they are in a relationship with a narcissist. Other than spotting some of these tendencies you said to look out for, what are some of the symptoms of the relationship if somebody is in a narcissistic dynamic? Something that is going to show up relatively early in the game. Love bombing can last anywhere from 6 to 8 months. But even during the love bombing phase, you are going to see the slipping in of gaslighting. Ultimately, a narcissistic relationship is a power play. That is what it is. Their motivation in a relationship is power, dominance, and control. Your motivation in a relationship may be love, affection, and closeness. You are not playing the same game, so they are trying to dominate you. And gaslighting is one of the best ways to do that. You destabilize their reality, then you destabilize them by telling them there is something wrong with them. Rinse, lather, repeat. You do that enough times, a person completely loses themselves. They completely doubt themselves. Why? Because they love the person. If you started to gaslight me, I do not know you well enough. I would just turn off my computer and be out. But if we were close, if you were a family member, a partner, a good friend, I would have a connection, an attachment, and I would want to continue maintaining that. So to maintain that, I'm going to make allowances. I might think maybe they did not mean that. Maybe I did put the keys in the wrong place. Maybe I never said that. Maybe I'm just being too suspicious. Slowly but surely, the person being gaslighted starts to internalize responsibility for anything going wrong in the relationship. So that is probably one of the most insidious dynamics, and it shows up early. A gaslighter is testing the water. If you know what gaslighting is and you start stepping away at the relatively early signs of it, the relationship is not going to last long. But because people are often enjoying the love bombing phase, getting to know someone who is charming, charismatic, attractive, confident, that is not bad stuff. So when a person has all these goodies and then they start doing this gaslighty stuff, we sometimes make excuses to keep the good stuff rolling. That is one pattern that will show up. You will also see other kinds of power plays and unhealthy patterns. There will be invalidation. They will make you small so they can be big. Oh, yeah, you went to that school. Sounds like it was cool. But my school, my job, I did this. So it is always, I will acknowledge that, but let me tell you what I did. There is a lot of invalidation, even a sense of dismissiveness or minimization. Your problems are not that big a deal. You think you have problems. Let me tell you about this. You often feel in these relationships like you are trying to measure up to some weird standard they have, or you're trying to win them over, trying to earn their love. That gets tricky for people who might have an early history of these kinds of relationships. If a person grew up with a narcissistic, or invalidating, or antagonistic, or toxic parent, these patterns are very much in your nervous system and in your body. When they start happening again, it is old school for you. So it is easy to fall into those patterns again. It is not unusual for narcissistic people to betray your trust. It might not be that they are cheating on you early in the relationship, but they might still be shady on social media, and they will come up with all kinds of brilliant or gaslighty excuses. So you start feeling like you are the one who is paranoid and weird, and they continue doing shady stuff. So you are forever in this haze, never quite able to exhale in the relationship. They are argumentative, and they are really good at arguing. It is back to the power play. Some people will say, I used to like getting into a healthy argument, but this is not that. This is being overwhelmed, and someone feels like they are coming at me like a tidal wave. There is a lot of dysregulation in these relationships. Narcissistic folks go from 0 to 60 in 1 second. They are very dysregulated with their anger. That anger comes about when they have an ego injury. An ego injury can be caused when they do not feel special. That might be that somebody disrespected them at work that day, and you had nothing to do with it. It could be that they did not get the parking spot they wanted. It could be that there was traffic. It could be that their friend got to go on a really cool vacation, and they did not. You do not know what is going to set off that ego injury. But what we do know is that it turns into rage. And that rage might come at you even if you are not responsible. You are not the reason they had the bad day at work. And a lot of people think, what is happening? So now you are living in a minefield. You do not know what is going to set them off. You are tiptoeing, doing the proverbial walking on eggshells. Walking on Eggshells is a great book written by a woman named Randy Krager. She's been writing in this space for a while. She talks more specifically about borderline personality styles. It really was a seminal book in the field because she was one of the first, especially with borderline, which is harder to do, to say, whoa, you realize everyone else is adjusting to air behavior for these folks, and that is not cool. It was a courageous leap, and people like me were able to come in afterwards and talk about these other personality styles. So, do you think there is any hope for somebody who is in a relationship with a narcissist? Let's say somebody is listening or watching this and they think, oh my gosh, I honestly think I might be in a relationship with a narcissist. Is there any conversation that can be had with this person? Can a narcissist change, or is the best way of survival to get out? It depends on the person. This is where it gets really complicated. My approach to this has always been to have no agenda, to not say, well, if you do not get out, then it is really going to always be a nightmare for you. That is not true. Healing is an inside game. It is something we can take responsibility for in ourselves, even if we are in a mess. Healing is possible even when getting out is not. That is what I tell folks. There are a lot of reasons people feel they cannot get out of these relationships. There are the complex trauma bonded dynamics, but they also still love the person despite how difficult it has been. They still feel a sense of love, a sense of loyalty. They have a sense of fear. If I leave, what if they turn around and become a nice person for the next person? Or, there is still some stuff I like here. I do not want to be alone. There are practical factors, money, a shared home, you might have kids together. Then there are cultural and religious factors. People feel like, especially if they are married, I cannot split up with this person. I am in it with them. Whatever it may be, no reason is a wrong reason. There is no judgment or shame around the reasons. Your reasons are yours and they are real. This idea that it is just because you are lame and a doormat, there are no doormats. These things do such a number on you. And if you still feel love for a person, you still feel love for a person. No one else gets to tell you you do not. So what the hope then becomes, and it is all predicated on radical acceptance to me, is you have got to see this thing for what it is. And no, it is not going to change. And what tiny bit it changes is not going to be enough to make this a healthy relationship. I could put crown molding in my house. It does not make it a mansion. It makes it a house with crown molding. They might change a little bit. It does not make them into an empathic, warm, loving kind of person, not the way somebody needs. Now, some people will say, listen, this person went to therapy and they do not scream as much and it is still not deep. And I have to radically accept that is not what I'm getting in my life. But radical acceptance is that this person is not going to change or not enough. The relationship is not going to change. The patterns in the relationship are not going to change. And this is going to be hard. And it will still hurt even if they say things to you. But over time, some people say, you know what? We live in parallel here. We just shot a video today about this idea that some people are fully mentally out, but they are physically in. Is it optimal? Who is to argue? They will say, there are reasons I am staying in this. If they left tomorrow, I would be thrilled, but I cannot be the one who pushes the accelerator on that. I will tell you there are people who, quote unquote, get out of narcissistic relationships, but they are mentally still in it. It is almost like being a dry drunk. They are still mentally in the game, scanning social media, wondering who they are with and what they are up to. Some people are in the relationship but do not give a damn what happens to this person they are out. So radical acceptance is really a key, but it also fills people with grief. I love this person. I thought we were going to grow old together. I thought this, I thought that. Having to give up on all that is hard. Now, for the people who leave, it is a different path forward, and it is not all rainbows and moonbeams. In some cases, narcissistic people do not like to be left. Let's call it straight. They do not. They have high rejection sensitivity. So if somebody leaves them, there will be hell to pay. There might be what we call post-separation abuse. The narcissistic person may stalk them on social media or even literally. They may spread rumors, do what we call a smear campaign. They may enlist what are called flying monkeys, people who talk badly about the person who broke up with them to anyone who will listen. And some of those people will start to believe it. So you will feel like your entire support system crumbled overnight. So these things happen. You think you were just trying to break up, but now your whole life is kind of a mess. And so people will sometimes feel, what have I done? This is worse now. Some people will break up and feel a sense of regret. So when the narcissistic person hoovers them back in, they are vulnerable to it. So it is a complex landscape, even if people leave. In the grand scheme of things, if someone could leave and be narcissist free or get rid of this person and really work on themselves, they will feel better. But people can heal while they are in these relationships. I have seen it happen. It happens all the time. I always say it is like you are still walking, but now there is a bit of a slope on the walk. But it can be done. There are similarities between this type of relationship dynamic and being in a relationship with somebody who is an addict, right? You have to gain radical acceptance. You have to take care of yourself. You cannot let the relationship destroy you. You cannot create a false idea of what the relationship could be. You have to accept it for what it is. And if things get better, awesome. But if not, you have to accept it is not your fault. I have seen people completely self sabotage when they are in relationships with somebody who is an addict, and it ends up impacting their own mental health and life. The same thing happens in a narcissistic relationship, and probably it is more severe. How can somebody prevent that? If they have gained radical acceptance of the situation, what are some things they should be doing on a daily or weekly basis? Again, I know you are not about a one size fits all approach, but generally, what can people do to make sure they are not sacrificing their mental health once a person hits radical acceptance? And listen, not everyone has access to therapy, but if you do, be in it ideally with the therapist who gets this stuff. Simply having that validating space with somebody who has a trained ear can make a huge difference. You also want to be shoring up your other social supports. Something that makes us gaslightable is if in all the relationships we are in, our reality is being denied or twisted, and we are being told there is something wrong. If all our relationships are destabilizing, that makes it tricky. But if you have validating spaces in your life, a strong friendship network, or trusted colleagues, continue to cultivate that because a narcissistic relationship is like a black hole. It sucks all of you into it, all your resources, bandwidth, thoughts, feelings, everything. Radical acceptance means thinking, I am no longer bringing my A game to this relationship. I am going to have to cultivate these other spaces in my life because these people see me, I see them. It is a mutual and reciprocal relationship. You get to experience that two-way road that is a relationship. Again, being in therapy is also a big one. The other thing is practicing realistic expectations. Radical acceptance and realistic expectations go hand in hand. It is things like knowing the person is about to have their birthday and knowing that the narcissistic person, it is hit or miss if they are going to celebrate it right. This matters to you that much, set something up with your friends. It could be a lunch or a dinner. You need to do you. I say to people, I am never going to be able to take away the hurt while you are in this relationship, but I would like to take away the surprise. I have clients who week over week say, you are not going to believe what he did. And I look at them and say, I absolutely believe what he did. I would have set a clock that this is what he would have done. We will even play a game because they will say, I am going to be doing this and this when I see my mother or narcissistic partner. I say, here is how it is going to go down. I will make a bet with you. We will bet stuff like a coffee or Starbucks. If I am right, you buy me Starbucks. If I am wrong, I buy it for you. I have nothing but Starbucks gift cards in my house because I am always right about this. And it is not that I am some kind of genius. It is just that pattern. And I want to lift the surprise. The more we play that game, they say, I saw it and I did not react to it this time because the surprise leaves. You feeling worn down and let down. I cannot believe he did it. Versus, here we go. That is a very different nervous system stance. Another thing is to learn your nervous system. We might be fighters, flyers, freezers, submitters, or fawners. Know your nervous system repertoire. How do you respond to threats? Because those often predominate. Some people feel shame. Why did not I say something? Their freeze response kicked in. It is learning that self-compassion, you were trying to keep yourself safe in what felt like a threat. It is about bringing self-compassion to yourself. Doing these things all together, engaging differently. You might say, well, that is not a relationship anymore. I do not disagree, but some people do not have a choice. But now it clears out a space for them to at least not be pummeled all the time psychologically. I imagine one of the other challenges of staying in a relationship with a narcissist is dealing with conflict. You can do the nervous system work, talk to a therapist, and that all helps tremendously. But how does somebody deal with conflict? You said a big part of how the relationships erupt with the narcissist, EST is how they respond to stress and turmoil in their life. What advice do you have there? It is a tough one because you are never going to be able to have any reasonable conflict with them. There is no such thing as having an argument with a narcissistic person. You are either going to be gaslighted, overwhelmed, bulldozed, or left. That is the entire vocabulary of conflict. So it is really about disengagement. As they go on and on, it is almost like you envision. There is a concept I have in my new book I call soul distancing. So while they are yammering on, you are almost envisioning, okay, my body is present, my soul is over here, I have it protected, I am not engaging with this. And they are going to yell and scream. Different people's nervous systems can put up with this in different ways. When a person is gaslighting you, the best you can say is, listen, we are having different experiences here. I thought you remembered it this way, I remembered it that way. That is it. That is a different experience. There are phrases you can have that can help, at least on your side. Put your punctuation mark on it. They are not going to let it go, though. They are fighters. They are built for the fight. And if you're not a fighter, this is a really bumpy road. The other thing narcissistic people do is they withhold and withdraw. For people who have abandonment fears, that can be really hard. The silent treatment is a very common tactic in narcissistic relationships. I would love to know your definition of gaslighting. Much like narcissism, gaslighting is used often. It is like, you are gaslighting me, and it is like, no, I am just holding you accountable. So, what is the true definition of gaslighting? How does somebody know they are being gaslit? Gaslighting is a tactic used to maintain power, dominance, and control in a relationship by destabilizing the other person. This destabilization happens by denying the reality, perceptions, experiences, memories, or even knowledge of the other person, and then doubling down and telling that person, there is something wrong with you. I never said that. What is wrong with you? Do you have some sort of mental problem that you make stuff up? So you see, it is not just, I never said that. It does not stop there. It is, you have a problem. You have to have both pieces. This is where people sometimes confuse lying and gaslighting. They are not the same thing. Lying is lying. I was not there and you were there. A gaslighter will take that and say, I was not there. And you know what? I feel like I am in a relationship with the CIA. You are the most paranoid, weird, needy girl. I am over this. That is a whole different game. The liar is like, I was not there. They do not go on to that second step. Gaslighting is a repetitive kind of maneuver. They do it over and over again with the goal of completely dominating someone so they are fully almost on board with the narcissistic person's point of view. That is what it looks like. It is not a difference of opinion. It is not holding someone accountable. It is attempting to hold someone accountable for something they did not do. It is a very problematic tactic. And just because someone gaslights does not make them a narcissist, by the way. All narcissistic people gaslight, but not all gaslighters are narcissistic. They may just be people obsessed with power, which probably makes them narcissistic, but we would not know until we peered under the hood. So that is what gaslighting is. Many times as gaslighting proceeds, the gaslighter will literally twist it to a place where they are the victim and you are the perpetrator, and you think, and people believe it, that you are a bad person. That is why many people in narcissistic relationships feel like they are bad people. How can somebody help take the power away from a narcissist? I've often heard that narcissists are addicted to validation, whether positive or negative. What tactics can somebody use to not give the person they are in a relationship with, if they are a narcissist, that much power over them? Do not engage. It is that simple. Do not engage. So when they are yammering on about something, sometimes what we will do is engage. In fact, I have an acronym. I tell people, when you are with a narcissistic person, do not go deep. Do not defend. Do not engage. Do not explain. And do not personalize this. When they are telling you something, we sometimes want to say, no, that is ridiculous. And then you are like, okay, cool. You really learn these techniques for disengagement because, like I said, there is not a lot of give and take in these relationships. They are basically holding court. I always say a relationship with a narcissist is like listening to a podcast. They are just blah, blah, blah. The difference is you cannot change to another show. So you are sitting there, they are holding court. If you view it that way, you can do mindfulness work. Sometimes when I am with a narcissistic person and they are yammering on, I will listen to part of what they are saying. And then if I am not in a position to be able to do something else, I will do a mindful sweep of the room. I will describe the room to myself. I will do a 5 to 4, 3 to 2 minus 1 grounding exercise. I will do something to ground myself. I just stop listening to them. It is just noise at that point. That is really the main way you can take away their power. There is no direct route. It is taking away the oxygen. If you want to stop a fire, take away the oxygen. If part of the game in surviving this relationship is radical acceptance of the situation, I imagine part of that is having compassion for the narcissist. As hard as it is, being able to understand that this person is really struggling and not as confident as they appear. How can somebody get to a place where they're having compassion for a person that treats them like garbage? You have to go through the whole healing process first. This is very much about making sure you have fully gotten your seat on that lifeboat and your stuff put away, and then you can work on it. Make sure you are also off the mothership, and then and only then. Because most people who have been in a narcissistic relationship have heaps and gobs and mountains of compassion for this person, far more than they had for themselves. And it got tested time and time again. And even when the whole thing falls apart, many people still have compassion. Well, they had a tough childhood, things have not gone their way, they feel hollow inside, some terrible things have happened to them. There is an exercise I talk about in my book called The Exercise of Multiple Truths. I say, okay, let's get out a piece of paper. I want you to write down, Eve, writhing that is true about this relationship. As you write all that down, it goes from everything: I love this person, I am scared of this person makes me anxious, I love spending time with them, I am really attracted to them, we have so much fun together, they are so mean to me. When you start stacking it all up, you see how messy this is. Just because you have compassion for someone does not mean you have to stay. The narcissistic person might say, oh, yeah, you care about me so much, then stop doing what you are doing. They will twist it. You do not need to share the compassion out loud with them. We can have compassion for people and leave them. We can have compassion for people and disengage from them. We really can, because either you are signing up to be a source of supply for them forever, which is in essence giving up on yourself, or you are saying, I hope this person gets the help they need or gets it together, but I am no longer going to be an audience to this. And because narcissistic people throw such tantrums when they are being rejected or perceive they are being abandoned, a lot of people say, well, that was mean of me to leave them. I say, what is your option? Door number 2 is you forever stay in psychological servitude. I do not want that. But there is no version of this where the narcissistic person is not upset. So I truly think having compassion and empathy in all our interactions is central to making this world a better place. But being compassionate and empathic does not mean giving in to what they want. It means knowing that being abused is not a way of showing empathy. Continuing to engage in the relationship, knowing that is what they're capable of. And when they say things like, but give me 6 months, I will go to therapy. I say, I'm going to do me for 6 months. You go into therapy. No matter what, it is going to be good for you. And then if you want to talk in 6 months, that is on you. But waiting around and holding space for them while they are doing the change is never a good idea. You talked about a lot of people who cannot leave a narcissistic relationship. They are stuck in it and have to make the most of it, have this acceptance we have been talking about. But there is also a percentage of people that could likely leave if they just knew what to do. What is the blueprint if somebody thinks, you know what, I think I can leave? What should they try and do? Here is the thing: I am going to leave the malignant, severe narcissism out of this conversation because that raises a whole set of issues around stalking and maybe even escalation of abuse. Let's take them out and stick with the moderate to mild. One thing you have to remind yourself is there is no version of you leaving this where they are okay with it. So I think once people decide they want to do this, they think it will not be crazy. It is going to be crazy. So you have to radically accept that. This is not going to be a calm rom-com moment where you say, sometimes we have to go our separate ways. That is never going to happen. So that is number 1. You almost have to gird yourself for the terrible things they are going to say to you, because they will say terrible things. That might mean you go to therapy first. It might mean that as soon as this is done, you block them on your phone for a while. Whatever so you do not have to get that incoming messaging, that is a big one. You want to have your ducks in a row. If you live with this person, you do not want this to be like, let's talk this out and then we can stay in the same place for a while. No, you cannot. You might need a friend's house or family member's house. You have to have the exit strategy sorted out before you have this conversation. If the relationship has lasted long enough, some people take the stance of maybe throwing the Hail Mary pass. Maybe we need to go to couples therapy. It is tricky if you do not have a good couples therapist. I would say you need someone who has been doing this for a while and who gets narcissism. Not a lot of couples therapists like to think both people are 50% complicit. It is not true in these relationships. So, a bad couples therapist or one who does not get narcissism could make this a bigger mess. If you have a great referral or know someone, this could actually be an exit. Some people will say, at least I know I tried this. It is probably not going to make a difference. But I do think making sure you have supports, whether through therapy or friends, having some sort of exit strategy in place if you live with this person, being prepared for the onslaught, because people say, when I leave, I just do not want it to be that bad. I say, it is going to be that bad. So if that is what you are waiting for, you are going to be in this relationship for 60 more years. You have to understand there is no easy way. It is like trying to merge onto a really messed up freeway. At some point, you just have to hope someone lets you in. That is the situation. That is the B blueprint. It is having support, being realistic, and understanding it is simply not going to be easy. How does somebody rebuild their self-esteem after it has been crushed in a narcissistic relationship after they exit? I think multiple things can happen. First of all, reacquaint yourself with yourself. I tell people if you have been in a narcissistic relationship for a year or longer, whether it is 12 months, 12 years, 60 years, give yourself a year off from all relationships. No sex, no dating, nothing, a year by yourself. The reason for that is whatever patterns got set in that relationship or maybe existed from childhood, they are still raw and the self gets lost. You are not going to find yourself on someone else's time. That is a solo journey. It is a chance to cut to the heart of any trauma bonded patterns, to go through a year of anniversary dates and all of that, and establish new rituals and routines. It is about figuring out what you like. I always say people who come out of narcissistic relationships do not even know what temperature they want the thermostat at or what they want on their pizza because every decision was kind of taken away. Figure that out. What do you want on your pizza? It could be the most weird, jacked up thing you have ever eaten. That is your pizza. Because after a year of doing that, you are a little more in your body and a little more in your feelings. So when someone new comes around, you are in a better position to be discerning. So when that year is up, it is almost like, okay, the dating apps are being deleted. And let's say you do meet someone worthy. You say to them, listen, I am coming off something and I am taking a year. We can be friends, whatever. And if that person says, well, hell, I am not waiting on you, then that was not your person. This year is essential. Now, people might say, I was only with the narcissist for 3 months. Then you take 3 months off. Under a year, take the number of months you were in the relationship. Over a year and longer, take a year. You need that much time. I call it a cleanse. It takes that time to get their voice out of your head. Some people say it takes longer than a year. Many clients, once they start a year in, are 2 or 3 years in. A big part of healing from past relationships and healing in general is finding a healthy relationship and changing patterns, changing how you view the relationship dynamic. Let's say they have done the work and moved on from their ex who was a narcissist, and they are looking to re-engage in the dating world, looking to find a new healthy relationship. What is the best approach to make sure they are doing it effectively in that process? Let's say they took the year, 6 months, however long, they have figured out who they are. They have learned what their no-fly zones are, what things are uncomfortable. We are not taught to do that. I always call it an excavation. When an archaeologist does an excavation, they do not just take a backhoe and dig a ditch. They take tiny shovels and brushes and tools and delicately uncover pieces. That is kind of what you are doing, excavating all these pieces of yourself and putting it together, sometimes for the first time. Once you are back out there again, it is a lot about moving slowly. Even after a date, instead of just coming home and flopping in bed, sit with, H it. How do I feel this in my body? How do I emotionally feel? What are my thoughts about this? Really be with it. The thing I say is folks coming out of narcissistic relationships who give themselves a break and start to re-individuate are more likely to throw away fish that are big enough to keep. So they might overcorrect a little. I would rather that than the other direction. And then people slowly start to learn the fine art of compromise. They realize somebody saying they do not want Mexican food for dinner does not mean they are dominating. They may just not want Mexican food, and you can come to a compromise. That is why those sounding boards you have cultivated become an important space. Therapy becomes a great space for that too. But it is about moving slowly and letting people know. One of the tricks of narcissistic relationships is they move fast. Narcissistic people will meet someone and be engaged in 3 months. That is a signature move. It is too fast. That speed means the other person cannot process what is happening in real time, so bad decisions are made. It is like if somebody tried to pressure sell you something, you tend not to make the best decision. So in this case, if a person says, I just want to let this unfold, and the other person says, why can't we do this? Why can't we do that? You say, I just want to take this at my time. And if they say, that is not working for me, again, not your person. If they cannot hear that need, like, I want to keep spending time with you, but I really want to keep living in my own spot. I need that for a while. And they say, no, not your person. Because if they are going to dominate about that, you have now set the tone. Some people feel bad that they will lose someone over that, but I say, nah, you knew where this was going to go. Let's go to the other side of this and talk about early stages when they are dating somebody, where it is much easier to walk away from somebody who could potentially be a narcissist. Are there certain things that somebody says early on in dating that should make you run? What would that be? I do not think it is necessarily what they say, but how they say it. Look for patterns like contempt, dismissiveness, snobbery. If they say a lot of dismissive things about other people, if they make barbs about groups, ideologically, racially, or social class wise, something not aligned with your values, that is often a big one. People say, maybe we just have different values. Can you live with that? It could be opposing views on something not core to you, like a social policy. But then there are things core to you. And if that is a core issue coming up, a core value difference, they may be poking and testing because remember, these relationships are about indoctrination. They will sometimes deliberately offend to see if you step back or awkwardly laugh because they are realizing you are a ripe target. So when somebody says something that puts you on your back foot, like, no, that is not cool, the good money would step away at that point. You are looking for those kinds of patterns. You are looking for things like comparison. You are looking for somebody who critiques everyone they meet. They may make fun of somebody's appearance, make a rude comment about a family in a restaurant, always criticize everyone they work with. That kind of stuff is a problem. They keep comparing you to people. That is a problem. Those are the things you are looking for. If they want too much time with you too, that love bombing, especially in the more severe relationships, is like, let's spend every day together for a week. Hell no, that is a huge mistake. So if somebody says, let's spend all this time together, say, I love spending time with you. I really look forward to the next time, but I have stuff to do. That stealing of individuation, a lot of people romanticize that as they think I am so cool, we're going to spend 72 consecutive hours together. This is not a good idea. That breathing space lets us individuate. It becomes really important. Narcissistic people will often want to get in there. And if you say, I need to do my own thing, and they say, I guess you are not feeling this. Your best play is, I am feeling this just fine, but I am not your 24/7 person. That might be a way to get rid of the low-hanging fruit early in the game. You hear a lot about attachment styles. A lot of times when people are anxiously attached, they want the relationship quickly. They want to get in super quick. So maybe they get overly excited about meeting somebody to get into a relationship quickly. What is the difference between somebody who is just truly excited about the person or anxiously attached versus somebody who is a narcissist love bombing? An anxiously attached person would hear your feedback about slowing down and would not rage at you. If anything, they might get a little sad or say, I am sorry, this is just my thing, and there would probably be a vulnerable share. A narcissistic person would get mad and immediately threaten abandonment. I guess this is not working for you. Bye. It would be much more abrupt, controlling, cold, and callous. An anxiously attached person would actually become quite vulnerable under that same challenge. What do you think about some of the people who have been called narcissists over the last few years, like Donald Trump or Sam Bankman Fried? Do you think these people are truly narcissists? Or do people just think that because they are excessively grandiose, they are not just excessively grandiose? Look at the things they have done. They are so narcissistic. It is like the perfect lab specimen. But that brings up the bigger issue. You are naming two, and I can think of hundreds of names off the top of my head. It is not as simple as grandiose by a long shot. But the fact is, when keep electing people to office, entrusting them with money, admitting them to fancy universities, all things that prop up their egos more, and we literally celebrate them, we have a problem. This thing that does so much harm in relationships is being vaunted as a good thing. That is a problem. So you're trying to warn people off something that looks great. It is like the most festooned bird in the jungle, and we are saying, stay away from that one. It is poisonous, but it is the prettiest bird. It is a tough sell. All these celebs, politicians, business jerks, tech bro types, so many are patently narcissistic. It is not like they are just grandiose, they are jerks. Tell me Sam Bankman-Fried has an ounce of empathy. Zero, none, zip. To me, the lack of empathy is probably more of a ringer than the grandiosity because a manic person could be grandiose. I have heard that the common thread among people who are truly narcissistic is they lack the ability to have empathy. Do you find that to be the through line? When we look at research, I think the researcher's name is Kai-sun, and I do not remember the CO author in their 2017 paper. They say entitlement is the middle pole in the tent. All narcissistic people are entitled. That is the universal feature. Then the lack of empathy goes with the entitlement because an entitled person thinks they are more special than anyone else. So I think those two are in bed together, but entitlement is the defining characteristic. The last question I want to ask you, let's say somebody is listening or watching this and they are hopeless in the depths of despair. They are either in a relationship with a narcissist or just left one in our company, completely broken. What advice would you give them if they ran into you at a book signing or coffee shop? What would you say? Assuming it is somebody who left the relationship, I would say this is a grief like no other. Like any form of grief, you have to let it run through you. We all think we are bigger than our emotions, but one emotion we are never bigger than is grief. You have lost something. What you lost may not be the unhealthy relationship, but you lost the narrative you had around it, the hopes you had, the good moments. Grieve those moments. The one friend we have in all these experiences is time. The human soul, the human heart are very resilient little organs, and they do come back, but you need time. There is a period of grief. But also, do not be shy. Write down every terrible thing that happened in the relationship. Write it down because when you feel like, what have I done? Or how can this happen? Look at the list and say, maybe I dodged something here. I have had clients say, writing that list was overwhelming. If it is overwhelming, put it down. But if you can write all that down, it makes a huge difference to say, okay, this was the right call. Make that list with friends too, because they probably observed a lot. If you can get into therapy because there is more stuff to be dug up. There is a reason maybe this lasted so long or got so toxic. What were the stories you told yourself? We have to look back and say, what did I not know? Some people say, it was not what I told myself. I did not know narcissism was a thing. I had no idea someone who claimed to love me could do this. Love means different things to different people. So I think it is grief, radical acceptance, recognizing this will take a minute, writing down the bad stuff and recognizing there is a reason I left. Another thing I tell people to write down also in the book is not just the bad stuff, but those little things you loved but gave up for the relationship. It might have been keeping Oreos in the house, watching films with subtitles, a Thursday night thing with friends, whatever it was. Some things are going to come back into your life. People say, oh my gosh, I can actually do this now. Lean into that. Say, I could not do this before. I remember one person I worked with had a malignant narcissistic partner for a long time. She was getting ready to go on vacation alone and felt sad, like an older person traveling alone. I said, let's do a little game. Reflect on what it was like to travel with him, how he would scream at you, scream at the gate agent, be angry about crowds, say, look at all these disgusting people in sweatpants. He was horrible. He would be angry if he did not get the seat he wanted, angry if there was not enough space in the luggage bin. Now, when you go on this trip, pay attention to how different it feels just going through the airport. She texted me after her trip and said, game changer. She was so aware of what it was like. She was nice to the TSA guy, enjoyed getting coffee and sitting at the gate, finally got the aisle seat he always took, and was able to go to the bathroom. She said, they were all these little blessings, and all of a sudden, this is good. We find it where we find it. Final thing. Do you think certain people just tend to be attracted to or attract narcissists based on their past relationship history or childhood? Or do you think once you do the work, heal, and understand yourself, you start to attract less of those people? Everybody is attracted to narcissistic people. Charm, charisma, attractiveness, confidence. You would be going off script to say, no, I am looking for someone. socially awkward, uninteresting, and lacking confidence. That is not what people look for. They look for that other stuff. So we are all attracted. What are narcissists attracted to? They are attracted to supply. Supply can be how you look, your status, if you have a nice car, a big job, are famous, come from a fancy family, live in a great place. Status means different things. If you are going to bring supply, that might be status, attractiveness, that you laugh at their jokes, tell them they are great. If you are supply, they are attracted to you. The challenge is supply looks different for every narcissistic person. You might be a super warm, sweet person who says, "Tell me everything about you. You're so amazing." When I hear a person super enthusiastic, I think this person is going to be very attractive to a narcissist. That person does not have to give up being themselves. They might just be enthusiastic about people. It is recognizing the signs. So if they feel that, they might attract them, but if you catch it early enough, it is pretty easy to walk away. It is like canceling an airplane ticket in the first 20 to 4 hours. You get your money back.